Hello, everyone. It looks like we're starting to have some people tune in. Just give us a few seconds to kick off. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Uh, Today's session, we will be focusing on how to increase efficiency, driving collaboration, and deploying secure and compliant code for using enterprise-ready tools. That's going to be our focus today. To give a quick introduction of myself, I'm Karthik Rameshkumar. I'm the Director for Field Services for Asia Pacific West at GitHub. I'm joining you today from the beautiful city of Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu in India. GitHub and me have been a very strong and long-lasting relationship. I've been a big GitHub user since college. And to see myself having done Hacktoberfest and contributed to open source, and then seeing myself finally at GitHub and being a hubber is a fantastic experience for me. As I'm also joined today by Shilpa. Shilpa, over to you. Give us a little bit of an introduction.
Thanks, Karthik. Hey, everyone. So my name is Shilpa Raghunathan, and I'm a senior solutions engineer at GitHub. I'm based out of Bangalore, India, so I unfortunately can't say great things about it the way Karthik could about Coimbatore. Everyone just thinks about the traffic. But anyway, so I'm super excited about today's session because as a solutions engineer, I have the privilege of speaking to several customers who have varying degrees of familiarity with GitHub. And there's just so many different opinions that I encounter when I speak with them. And in today's session, we'd love to share some of those with you. But more on that in a few minutes, though. Back to you, Karthik.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shilpa. As we're introducing ourselves, I'd love the audience to introduce yourselves too. So tell me a little bit. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're coming from and where you're streaming live to this. And let the chats light up. Represent where you're from, because we all want to build from wherever we are. In terms of what we've done for Galaxy, we've had a wonderful keynote which touched upon GitHub Copilot, Copilot X, our GitHub Enterprise features, and our project management suite. These are a key insight for everybody to sort of understand what our product features are doing right now and how they're poised to sort of revolutionize our developers' life cycles. And in our sessions in day one and day two, we did speak about security and productivity. There's a lot of insights. And for any of those that were actually tuning in a little bit time before, we had a fireside chat with giants like Udan and KPMG and CBA, who were talking to us about productivity and efficiency drivers. It was really cool to sort of have Pierre Luigi, who was our host, sort of lead some of that session piece too. I want to remind everybody here that you can watch all of these sessions live as video on demand on galaxy.github.com in case you heard any of the stuff that I mentioned before and you were unable to sort of participate and watch them. It's some housekeeping items before we get on to the webinar. Quickly, there is obviously going to be a Q&A. So if you have questions for our speakers today, so there is a Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Please go ahead and put questions there. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can before the event ends. And just want to give a few tips and tricks for everyone for an optimal viewing experience. Be sure to join us from a desktop. We recommend Chrome or Edge or Safari. These are the browsers that we know work best. Firefox works too, but the current version. If you're not able to see the screen at any time, just try refreshing the page. Sometimes it's a caching problem. And if you are on a VPN, we recommend disabling a VPN and refreshing the screen and then trying logging in again. And then you can find the event link from the inbox or your calendar invite and then start again in an incognito window. That's sort of our recommendation for that. If you need any help in troubleshooting the issues on the platform, we do have some documentation. On the far right side, you'll see in the doc section, there's a help doc to sort of help you out in some of those pieces as well. So you can do that too. If one of the features of today's session is going to be that it's going to be interactive. It's a Friday, everyone. We've all had a lot of monologue sessions. We've had a lot of people talking one way, but we want to make sure that we hear from all of you in the audience and give you an opportunity to come up. So if you're interested in making yourself seen in this webinar, if you want to show yourself up, yes, I'd love to sort of see that. So we have a video Q&A available for those that want to join us on stage. Yes, you can join me and Shilpa on this virtual stage. At the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand function in the Q&A tab. You can use that function to sort of bring yourself on and request to be brought on. We'll have some interesting things that we'll see on how you will bring it on. If you're being brought on, please make sure that you have allowed your browser access to video and microphone. That's the only way your browser will be able to see your cam and some of those things. And if you are not interested in coming on stage, do put your hand down after that. That's very important. Just don't keep your hand raised up. So on with the show. What are we going to do today? So we're actually going to do our own version of Gitbusters, dramatic entrance, right? So we're going to put some myths in front of all of you. The ask is that you all hear the myth, or a misconception that we're going to put about GitHub for you. Hear it out and sort of start understanding what you feel really about that with. I'll open up a poll after that. On the right-hand side of your screen, there's a poll tab. I'll open up a poll. You'll be able to vote on a poll. I'll also show live the results of the poll of what our audience that's tuning in live is sort of voting on. And then you can make your voice heard by voting on that poll. So make sure that you vote on that poll and make your voice heard. And for a lucky few, for those folks that are sort of raising their hands up, you can smile at your camera and join me and Shilpa on the stage and come on live and talk with us. So that's going to be sort of the holy trifecta of how we're going to do this. So that's the piece there. All right. I'll move on to sort of do a little bit of an introduction before that. So without further ado, I'll actually kick off our first poll. Are you all ready for the first poll? Everybody ready? There you go. GitHub is meant to be used for open source or personal projects only. So go to the poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen and go and add your votes. Make your voice heard. Come on, we're going to hear what everybody feels. What do you reckon the result for this one will be, Shilpa? And in addition, we also sort of recommend raising your hand on the bottom right. So if you are willing to come up on screen, you can actually raise your hand. We will see some individuals that are raising their hand, and we'd love to have you come on screen and show up. I'm also already seeing a few people put their hands up. Please go raise your hands on the right-hand side of your screen under the Q&A section, and we'll come and bring you up on stage. All right, it looks like a bunch of votes are already coming in. Come on, folks. I expect more votes piling in. That's it. Wonderful.
So I really like that there's this nice distribution across all three options.
Yeah, it's really nice. That's what we're here for, aren't we? I'd love to understand that piece. That's nice. All right. On that note, I actually have some folks that have put their hands up. Thank you so much for everyone that's saying. We're actually going to be joined in a minute by Logesh. Logesh, if you're able to see us and come on screen, we'd love to hear what you think about this one. Let's give it a minute. Okay. All right. It looks like Logesh is seeing some technical difficulties. I'm going to give a chance to Durvesh. Let's see if Durvesh is able to join us on screen. There you go, Durvesh. Hey, man. All right. Fair enough. We'll try to come back again to audience for a Q&A for the next one. So please do raise your hands up, everyone that's interested. And we'll come back up again. But yes, over to you, Shilpa. And let me make sure that we've got to go back. Hold on.
Cool. Thank you, Karthik. Okay. So this was interesting because, what we hear very often is that folks are obviously very familiar with how popular GitHub is with the open source community. So some of these stats that you're seeing on the screen right here, right? Like about thousands of open source communities actually using GitHub, and there being more than 200 million repositories. This is definitely not going to come as a surprise to anyone. But you may not be aware that some of the most exciting companies in the APAC region. So you have folks, if you look at some of the logos on the left side of the screen, you'll actually see that there's folks like Tokopedia, Flipkart, Mercari, and large enterprises like Infosys and Cognizant that are actually using GitHub Enterprise today. Okay. And if you'll move on to the next slide, you'll see that, because you might wonder, like, what is it that's bringing about 90% of Fortune 100 companies to GitHub? So it's simply the fact that GitHub Enterprise offers a complete platform that will support developers from idea to production. Because what you get to do is have discussions, you can track your projects, you can collaborate with the broader open source community, as well as within your enterprise. You can do code reviews, you can build your automated CI/CD pipelines, put in security and governance and compliance related policies, manage all of this from one place. So over the course of today's session, we'll obviously get into some of these topics that I mentioned in greater detail. But honestly, if tool sprawl is something that's been haunting you, that's definitely something that GitHub is going to be equipped to help you with.
Wonderful. That's really interesting to hear. And that's something that we speak to a lot of our customers as well about, which means that it's now time for our second poll, right? What is this going to be this time? Remember, folks, keep your poll hands ready, and we can go from there. I'm going to open up our next poll and then quickly bring this up on stage. GitHub is only meant to be used for source code management or version control. Do you feel, yes, Git is GitHub, isn't it? Or do you feel, nope, that barely scratches the surface of what GitHub can do? Or are you on the fence there? Let me know. What do you think about this? And as I already said, I'm going to be pulling people in for video Q&A here as well. So please put your hands up for video Q&A. On the right-hand side of your tab under Q&A, you can put your hands up. We'd love to bring you on stage to see if you're ready to sort of answer some of those questions as the votes start piling in. Oh, that's interesting. There seems to be a little bit of a distribution in the votes. What's everybody feeling? Is this fair? Is this accurate? Have all of you made your voice heard? There you go. Yeah, I can see some more people voting. Come on, folks. We're looking for some more people to take on the video Q&A. Any takers for a video Q&A? Anybody want to join us live on stage here with me and Shilpa? Perfect. All right. I'm going to stop sharing the poll and I'm going to pass it back to Shilpa. And we heard an overwhelming majority of people feel that way. Let's go to Shilpa.
Cool. Thanks, Karthik. So this is a question that I really like because I think, and we saw this reflected in the poll responses as well, right? So a lot of folks are aware that GitHub can be used for things other than just source code management or as a version control system. But you'll often see that there are folks who say that, hey, Git is the same thing as GitHub, so it is purely for that, nothing else. And there are a lot of other folks who say, yeah, I've heard that GitHub offers a little bit more, but I don't know much about it. And I think that's why I really appreciate having this opportunity to talk about what else GitHub Enterprise actually offers. So we, briefly touched upon this the last time when I was presenting. And essentially, GitHub Enterprise provides you with an end-to-end platform that helps you accelerate high-quality software development and delivery. And if you're familiar with GitHub, you know that there's a huge focus on collaboration and inner sourcing in, all aspects of our product. Because what we're trying to do is empower developers to build productively and allow you to consolidate and scale as your team and the requirements grow. Right. So even in the way we design collaboration across teams, so if you've checked out our new project boards, or if you've seen how we promote reuse either via, allowing you to access components in the open source community, or even just inner sourcing within an enterprise, you'll see collaboration is first and foremost in a lot of the decisions that we take. But it's not just that, right? In the last couple of years, we've really doubled down on how we empower developers to build productively and with really powerful automation and development tools. So, if you've been following some of our releases, you'll see that we now have code spaces, which gives you access to instant pre-configured development environments, which is going to shorten your time to productivity. If you're using actions, you know that we have more than 17,000 community-generated actions available in the Actions Marketplace. And a newer announcement that we know that there's been a lot of excitement around is GitHub Copilot. This is actually helping developers halve the time that they need to complete their work. We're seeing that they are writing up to more than 40% of their new code using Copilot suggestions. And about 75% of the developers we've surveyed, they say that they feel more fulfilled when they're using GitHub Copilot, which is all great news for developers overall, right? And last but not least, I'm sure everyone knows that it's very important to provide a secure, compliant platform without having to sacrifice speed. And we've tried to make this easier by baking security into everyday development activities on GitHub. So you'll see that we have customizable branch protection rules. It's easy to audit reviews. We've now provided even more granular access control methods. You can set multiple reviewers for a pull request. And with GitHub Enterprise, there's enterprise-grade logging and access control capabilities as well. That's going to satisfy security and compliance requirements, no matter what kind of industry you actually belong to. Okay, back to you, Karthik.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. And as we go on to our next poll is sort of where we're going to go. I still want to hear more from the audience. I'm opening up a poll, bring up into your forefront right now. Tomato. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Shilpa. There's no right pronunciation. Come on, let's face that. GitHub Actions is no different from any other CI and CD tool. How many of you feel, yes, that's just another CI CD tool? How many of you say, no, I think GitHub can do more? And how many of you feel unsure about this and want to learn more about this? It looks like about 60% of the audience does understand that GitHub can do more. That's very interesting. As I remind again, everyone, that there's an opportunity for you to come on video Q&A. So if you put your hands up on the right-hand side, you can be approved to come and join us on stage to share your thoughts about why you feel GitHub Actions is different or don't, and what's your opinion on this poll. I see Michael putting his hands up. Michael, would you like to join us on stage and share your thoughts? Hey, Michael. Hi.
Hey, good day. Can you hear me?
Good day to you.
Good day.
What are your thoughts on this poll right here? And where are you joining us from?
From Auckland, New Zealand.
Awesome. Wonderful. What are your thoughts on this poll?
My thoughts on this poll? Our company doesn't use GitHub. And so it's only just been in the last couple of days since I heard about CodePilot that I thought I'd check it out. And I guess my thoughts on GitHub Actions is I'm unsure. Tell me more.
Wonderful.
I know I can do CI/CD stuff, but
yeah, that's nice. It's exciting. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining, Michael. I'd love to see you. Here, and we'll see you around in the chat too. And let's hear more from Shilpa as she tells us why GitHub Actions is probably different and can do a lot more for us. I'm going to stop sharing this poll and move over to Shilpa.
All right, thank you. Actually, firstly, thank you to Michael. I know it's pretty late where you are now. So thank you so much for joining us this late on a Friday evening. So I hope you're going to find this session useful, because I am going to talk a little bit about what Actions is and how developers can benefit from it. So firstly, yes, Actions is a CI/CD platform, but I really like to think of it as an automation platform, which is super accessible to all GitHub users, but especially GitHub Enterprise users, because you'll see that we have a marketplace of more than 17,000 actions workflows, which has been created by our community. So that way we continue to tap into the power of open source to get folks to create workflows that can easily be reused by other users as well. So in terms of a learning curve, it's just not that steep, because you have so many references to use when you are new to Actions. We also provide a lot of flexibility in terms of the operating systems that you can use for your runners. So you'll get Linux, Windows, and Mac runners to choose from if you want to use GitHub hosted runners. But of course, if your company prefers to use self-hosted runners so that you're using your own infrastructure, that is definitely an option. So you can download the Actions application, and deploy it on your own runners. The nice thing is it's, when you're using GitHub Actions, it's natively integrated into your GitHub workflows. So if you're creating a bunch of YAML files, you can have them live alongside your repository, because so that everything relevant is grouped together. And if you want to let's say you're used to some other CI/CD tool, maybe Azure DevOps is what you've been using for several years now, and you don't want to switch over just yet. That's okay. You can actually use GitHub Actions to help bridge the gap between the two. You can use this to just orchestrate things happening on other tools, so you don't have to destroy your existing pipelines in one shot. And you don't have to, the nice thing is you also don't have to repeat yourself, because you can use things like reusable workflows as your building blocks wherever tasks get repetitive. And I think, here's something that a lot of our customers appreciate. If you're a GitHub Enterprise customer, you do get 50,000 actions minutes free per month. Okay. Yeah, but moving on, you'll actually see that, so I've mentioned a couple of times that we have a marketplace with more than 17,000 actions, right? So what does that mean, and why should you care? So the marketplace is really where a lot of our technology partners, as well as the GitHub community, actually publish workflows that they are using. So, and when we're talking about technology partners, often these are the most popular ones that our customers are already using. So you'll see actions that have been contributed by Azure, AWS, GCP, HashiCorp, Twilio, Docker, you name it, right? And because these workflows are ready to use, they usually consist of just about anything that you would typically want to do. Maybe it's setting up the CLI, maybe it's publishing an artifact, maybe it's spinning up a new instance, whatever it is. Because someone's already published that workflow, referring to the marketplace it takes just about 10 seconds for you to just copy and paste a workflow into your repository and get started. Okay. So yeah, moving on. The nice thing again is that, I'd mentioned earlier that GitHub Actions is embedded natively into your workflow. What does that mean? Basically, so if as a developer, you're working on GitHub and, you have a main branch, you've created a feature branch and you've started working on it. As you work, you keep committing changes. And, the typical workflow is when you're ready to merge these changes, you are going to open a pull request. Folks are going to review it, maybe share some comments before it's ready to be merged, right? So without needing you to navigate away from this existing workflow, we allow you to integrate every step of your CI/CD within this. So when you run GitHub Actions, as soon as you open a pull request, that can be the trigger. The event can be the fact that you've opened a pull request, and you can have a number of checks passed, which is what you'll see in the first screenshot. And what these checks can do, because it's a part of your CI/CD pipeline, you can have several things. You can look at code coverage metrics. You can run SaaS tools. There's a number of use cases that can actually be run as a part of your pipeline, and you can also choose to have a merge blocked if any of these checks fail, right? And you can just get a summary of, hey, what's the current status of all the tests that have been configured for this particular repository, just by looking at your pull request, and you'll see that whole summary. And the nice thing is, I'm sure you've seen this, our workflows are not always going to pass. There are going to be days that every single thing just fails. So instead of you having to switch context and, in order to troubleshoot, you'll see that when you're using GitHub Actions, the raw logs for those workflows, for those workflow runs are available right within GitHub itself. So it's very nice how you can stay in your flow state and just not have to switch between different tools, different interfaces to get the job done. All right, then, over to you, Karthik.
Perfect, Shilpa. Which means it's actually time for our next poll, where we actually have something more spicy this time around, everyone. This is something I'm sure everybody has an opinion about. Developers have no role to play in application security. I told you it's spicy. Remember, we do have a video Q&A on the right-hand side. So if you want to put your hands up for this, go ahead and do that. And for everybody else, just do go vote for this poll. Let your voice be heard. What do you feel? Yes, security is for security teams. Do you say no, everybody is on the security team? Everybody should be doing security, including developers. Or do you feel, no, I don't know. Tell us what GitHub thinks about this. I might be on the fence here. Every point of view is valid. There's no right or wrong here. Make your voice heard. And if you're ready to come on stage and share your opinions and thoughts about this, I'd love to hear it. Let's see if we can do that. We have with us joining on stage Ganesha. Hey Ganesha, hi. What are your thoughts on this?
Hi.
Thank you for joining us on stage. Where are you joining us from?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. All right. As we hear from the audience more on this, let's make sure. So we see about 86% of the team basically saying that they see that everyone has a role in application security, including the developers. That's interesting. About 89% of the audience feels that. What do you feel about that, Shilpa? And I think we'll see why we feel that that's the case in our preceding slides. So I'm going to pass it back to Shilpa for her to tell us why she feels that way.
Cool. Thank you. I think, this is one of those tricky questions where everyone knows what the answer is supposed to be. Of course, you're supposed to say that, yes, it's not just for security teams. Everyone does security. Developers need to play a role as well. But I think it's just so hard to put in practice. But I think, but of course, I think everyone has come to the realization that, developers most definitely do have to play an active role when it comes to security, because, as most of these flaws in applications are consistently the number one attack vector for breaches. And, if you're wondering what this graph is, right? What this graph is showing you is what our data science team found by analyzing millions of lines of code across our open source projects and over a period of 5 years. And we saw that, as the number of lines of code grow over time, so the purple line is actually the lines of code. So obviously that's going to grow over time, right? We found that, there is a corresponding increase in the number of security vulnerabilities in the code as well. And I guess this is fairly intuitive, right? As you write more code, there is inevitably going to be more security issues that actually creep in. So one of the things we've realized is that, hey, developers definitely need to be on board with respect to a security program, because any security initiative, for it to be successful, two key factors are, first, measuring and reducing the mean time to remediate, and as well as, figuring out what is the fix rate for discovered vulnerabilities going to be, and try to increase that percentage as much as possible. Okay. So the thing is, again, looking at the graph on this page, what you're going to see is that, the cost increases dramatically if you're going to wait to remediate. And here, when we talk about waiting to remediate, we're not just talking about time as measured in months or, weeks or even days, right? We're talking about even in the stage in your SDLC. If you're going to fix a security issue only once there's been a breach, that's obviously going to cause millions of dollars. So research by the Polemon Institute has actually found that the earlier you detect and remediate a security issue, the cheaper it really is. So looking at this, you might think, yeah, then why are people letting things get so bad in the first place? Why are security issues not remediated as soon as they're detected, right? There's actually three main reasons for this. So even though we know how things should ideally be, we see that 50% of companies end up sacrificing cybersecurity for speed because they don't want to impact their time to market. 57% of ops teams push back on security best practices because sometimes it might conflict directly with established guidelines that they already have in place, right? And 44% of developers are not trained to code securely, because often when we learn how to code, like the focus ends up being, oh, how do I write elegant code, or like how do I write efficient, performant code? And security is never really a focus, right? There's always been a different team that's meant to be the SME when it comes to security, right? So that's why there has been some friction when it comes to getting developers to be equal stakeholders when it comes to security. Right? So what we've tried to do at GitHub in order to overcome these challenges is come up with a form of integrated security analysis. And, you'll probably recognize this diagram from a slide that I shared earlier when we spoke about actions, because our philosophy is the same, right? We know how developers work, and we're trying to figure out how can we give the power to remediate, put it into the developer's hands without needing them to switch context, without making them learn how to use new tools and things like that, right? And without even becoming security experts for that matter. Firstly, you'll see when you submit a pull request, one of the things that GitHub does with our dependency scanning is let you know if are any of the dependencies that you're using in your projects, do they have any updates? Do they have any known security vulnerabilities? What version do you actually need to upgrade to in order to make sure that that vulnerability has been fixed? That's one aspect that we look at. The second aspect that we look at is checking if the commits that you're introducing, do they actually contain any hard-coded secrets? This could be something that just your company considers a secret, or this could be something that is a known secret, like perhaps a GitHub personal access token, right? So we actually have the power to block this at push. So even before someone commits something to github.com, we're able to detect any secrets and block those commits, which is extremely powerful. But we'll talk more about that later. And the last thing that we were actually doing in this space is code scanning, where we're actually finding and looking for risky patterns in your code and informing developers about it in the pull request itself. And this is super powerful because if developers are able to identify and fix security issues even before merging changes into the main branch, that means that these security vulnerabilities never made their way into production. And I think that should definitely be where we're trying to reach when it comes to security programs.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shilpa. While I stop sharing, and I'm going to share the last poll of this evening. So this is one last chance to make your voice heard, and another last chance for you to come on video Q&A if you have a chance. For anyone that's on video Q&A that doesn't want to come up, so please do put your hand down. There's a button to do that as well. But if you're interested to talk about this poll, you can put your hands up. And this one is going to ask all of you, right? This question. Nah, you won't find any secrets hard-coded anywhere in our code base, right? Are you saying no, we'd never ever see hard-coded secrets with you? Or are you saying, yep, I've done that, we've done that, we've all learned from it, and we're moving on from it? Or do you want to learn how to do this? Do you want to learn how to get better? What's your opinion? Again, these are all opinions. There's no right or wrong answer. Feel free to chime in. If you'd like to come on stage and talk to us a little bit about your experience with secrets, we'd love to hear that and hear your opinions too. So yeah, let's see if we are able to find a person here. There we go. We have Avikalp joining us. Hey, Avikalp. Hi. How are you doing, man?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well too. Avikalp, tell us a little bit about where you're joining us from, and let's go from there.
I'm joining you from Bangalore in India.
Wonderful. All right. So tell us about this. So what is your experience with secrets, hard-coded secrets in code?
Yeah, so I personally make my best, move to not do that. For some services like Firebase, I had to put something inside the config which needed to be committed because my deployment environment did not support environment variables at that time. But yeah, generally, I don't put any secrets in my code. I try to always publish them through the environment variable in my deployment, and But I have seen a lot of my team members commit secrets in the pull request, and I have to immediately tell them that, okay, this is a secret. This is not allowed to be merged in the main code. When they make this fix, I also make sure that I squash and merge that PR so that that secret is not available even in the history. Because we do a lot of our development open source, so having a secret in the open is way too risky for us.
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. We completely agree with that thought process. Shilpa.
Thanks, guys. Hey.
Thank you so much.
Hey, so thanks, Avi. I think, a lot of what you're talking about is definitely aligning with things that we've seen. So we're probably going to switch over to the slides now. And because I have some interesting stats to share. I think Avi mentioned that, while he's never actually committed secrets, he's actually seen a lot of his colleagues do that. Yep, that's definitely what we're seeing as well, because you'll see, so internally, we're of course keeping track of how many GitHub tokens are actually getting committed into code. And if you look at it, like, so in May 2020, there were about maybe 2,500 or so per month. But now that, like, in Jan 2023, the number is easily like above 7,500. So it's definitely more than 300 a day that we're seeing people commit. And this is just on public repositories. So just imagine if this is just GitHub tokens across the rest of the secrets that you're using. Sometimes it could be RSA keys, it could be SSH keys, it could be like credit card numbers, something that you're doing just during local testing, right? Or it could be a, I think, Firebase key, AWS, so many options, right? So this is definitely something that happens often because folks just want to do something for local testing and then they forget about it when they actually push a commit to github.com. It may not always result in horrible consequences. That could be, again, it could follow the 80-20 rule. And I think we have more info on that in the next slide, actually. So while it's not always going to be the end of the world, when you look at IBM's, some of their stats from the cost of a data breach report, both from 2021 and 2022, right? We found that compromised credentials were the most expensive of the lot. Because of course, you are going to have other things like, social engineering or a misconfiguration, all these phishing attacks, things like that. But consecutively in 2 years, we found that just in terms of the impact, if a leaked credential was actually used by someone for to attack, that's what would result in the most expensive outcome, right? And that's actually why we've put so much of a focus on secret scanning. So, when I last spoke, I mentioned that there are 3 different aspects that we're actually focusing on when it comes to GitHub and security, right? And this is apart from the things that we're doing with respect to access control. But just with respect to application, while there are 3 things we focus on, when it comes to secret scanning, especially in private repositories, we've seen that customers have really appreciated this feature, and they're seeing a lot of value from it because firstly, you can set it up across your enterprise if you're using GitHub Enterprise with just one click. There is no fancy configuration that's required. It's just a one click. And what's going to happen is we're going to scan your Git history to find secrets anywhere in your code. So we're not just going to look at your head commit. This is extremely powerful because, if someone's been diligent about, every time they commit something, if, they're deleting, they're doing a squash and merge, like Avid mentioned, that's great. But not everyone's aware about the additional steps that need to be taken to remove all traces of a secret from your history, right? So we're able to surface that to you. And secondly, because as everyone knows, prevention is better than cure, we also support push protections to make sure that if we detect a secret pattern, we will not allow the commit to github.com, right? And thirdly, so one of the things we've done with respect to identifying secret patterns is partner with a lot of our technology partners. At last count, there were more than 70 tech partners that we had worked with in order to identify, hey, what does your nomenclature look like when it comes to your secrets? What kind of patterns are you, what kind of regexes are you using? So that we can ensure that when we surface something as an alert, there is a very low probability of it being a false positive. But apart from that, we also support custom patterns, which means that if there is something that you count as a secret, that GitHub may not recognize as a secret, we allow you to create a custom pattern for that and do a dry run within your enterprise. Because again, if you're someone who's ever pushed a change without testing it thoroughly first, you know how much of a pain that can be, and that can just result in thousands of alerts, people getting spammed. So a dry run is a nice way for you to circumvent that. Right. So, yeah, I think secret scanning is something that there's definitely a lot of value in that we've seen over the last few years. Over to you, Karthik.
Perfect. So that ended us with the section of the polls. But I think the clear message that we're trying to drive for all of you here is that GitHub is just more than just being a code repository. Shilpa, walk us through a little bit of what more is there on GitHub and give us sort of a tying the bow experience and understanding what all we can get from GitHub.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I feel like at this point, it's safe to say that unless you've been living under a rock, you've definitely heard of GitHub Copilot, right? And the thing is, there was also an announcement recently about GitHub Copilot for X. So I wanted to talk about both. So GitHub Copilot, very simply, is your AI-based, pair programmer, right? So what it does is, if you're using the GitHub Copilot plugin in your IDE, as you're working on your code, it offers autocomplete-like suggestions to allow you to code faster. And this we found has been so useful for developers when it comes to things like, repetitive tasks. And they've also found a lot of benefit when it comes to maybe a language that they're not very familiar with, so they may not know the syntax inside out. So we found, I shared some of the stats from our research earlier as well, right? So GitHub Copilot, I think, has been amazing. And I think, we've also realized that the IDE is not the only place it actually needs to live. We can actually introduce this and touch developers' lives basically across the SDLC, not just when they're writing code. And that's why you'll see that we also have, with GitHub Copilot for X, you can kind of sort of think of this as, a research project, because a lot of this is in tech preview. So we just want to walk you through what is going to be possible today in order to actually use most of what comes under the second column. You will probably have to sign up for a wait list. I don't think you'll have access to it directly, but just for you to know, what exciting things await. One of them is actually having a very ChatGPT-like experience, but right within your IDE, to get context about the code, to get suggestions, things like that. There's also, a voice-enabled function, so that we used to initially call it Hey Copilot, but now it's being called, GitHub Copilot Voice. I think this is amazing from an accessibility standpoint, to not have to type these prompts, but actually be able to say them out loud and interact with GitHub Copilot that way. The third super powerful way is in pull requests as well. I think, everyone knows that we tend to be lazy when it comes to writing comments in our code, when it comes to commit messages, and maybe even providing context about what is the scope of a particular pull request, what has been changed and why. I think, one of my colleagues is definitely going to share a short YouTube video about the GitHub Copilot for X stuff in just a bit. You should watch that video. It shows you what is actually possible with Copilot for pull requests, where it's able to provide so much context. And similarly, even with docs, it's able to help you with, all that pesky documentation. So it just makes your life so much easier, so that you're able to focus on the more creative parts of your work, like, solutioning, figuring out architecture, new options, things like that, right? So I think this is super exciting.
And also, I strongly do recommend you go and check out the recorded video of the keynote that we did on day one of the Galaxy webinar series that ends with this webinar right here, where we actually did a keynote with our Chief Executive Officer and our product team that works on the GitHub Copilot and Copilot X features. So go check them out in galaxy.github.com, where you can see the keynote where a lot of these features are actually shown with a test drive of sorts, where they're taken for a test drive. Shilpa, thank you for that tying the bow experience of what an AI generative platform will do for all of us. But can you help us all summarize in one shot and one slide? I know it's like an insane sort of mountain task. What is GitHub? What is GitHub Enterprise?
Yeah, okay, sure. So I think, one of the things that we really wanted to share with all of you today is that don't think of GitHub as just something that you use for version control. Think of this as a fully integrated DevSecOps platform, right? So we've spoken about the 3 key focus areas, about collaboration, about automation and tools to make developers more productive, and about putting in security in every aspect of the developer experience. So whether it's things like secret scanning, whether it's using Copilot or code spaces, whether it's just using GitHub projects and just integrating everything with the GitHub flow. I think we provide so much functionality so that if you're struggling with things like tool sprawl, if you don't know how to orchestrate using multiple tools, GitHub Enterprise is probably the right option for you to explore how you can make things much easier to manage.
Wonderful, yes. Thank you so much, Shilpa. On that note, this marks the end of the GitHub Galaxy webinar series. We're really thankful for every single person that made the time to be here, made the time to be able to be here. As you continue to chat, you'll see that a lot of our colleagues have been helping answer us. So I want to give a huge shout out to all of our GitHub colleagues who've been helping answer all of the questions that people are putting up in the chat as well. For folks that want to view videos of the past series and the past sessions of the series that happened, you can go check them out on galaxy.github.com. We'll also be sending a follow-up email once these sessions are able to view. So do keep checking your inbox for that invite. And before we wrap up and do anything, if you'd like to take a deeper dive into any of the features that we did today, please do click on the book a meeting button on the top right of your screen. And a member of our team will be in touch with you shortly to be able to offer you a demo and then take it forward from there. And lastly, please just take a minute or two to complete a short survey of how your webinar today was with us. You'll find a link to that survey in the documents, and Georgia has also posted a quick link for that in the chat. We've designed this program for you, and we want to make sure that we made the most valuable use of your own time. We'll take the feedback that you give very seriously, and we'll optimize the future programming to get better. So please don't be shy. Do tell us what you're thinking. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone once again for being here. We look forward to seeing you for the next one. Let's build from here. The QR code for the survey is on the screen. Thank you.